Hello one and all, and welcome back to another installment of the AOR PC Split 1 highlights with F1 2014. Today we're at the Monaco Grand Prix, the jewel in the crown as it's called. My name is Justin, and joining me once again is Joe.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Justin, here once again for the Monaco Grand Prix, as Justin said. And, well, it's definitely one that the drivers will want to format, and although it isn't worth any more points than anywhere else, it really does show how much driver skill comes into play, and how they can navigate their way through the streets of Monaco. Obviously, we had a great race last time out in Spain, as we did in China, and I'm sure that we're going to have some great racing once again today.
Yep, last season in Monaco, we saw the fall of Alex Gillen's domination of the circuit as Turkish driver Furkan Özcan took pole position, and the podium consisted of two more Turkish drivers, with Cem Bolakbasi taking the win ahead of Umur Boyacı and F1 Daniel J. This season, Hamish has won the last two races in China and Spain, as Joe mentioned, but is still 13 points behind his teammate Marco FD. As always, we'll be kicking things off this weekend with a side-by-side qualifying comparison.
This week's qualifying comparison, we have Double D and X-Ownage going to be taking us the lap around the famous Monaco street circuit as they've both gone through Sandoval in third gear. Nice exit from the pair of them as they go up the hill towards turn 3 and into the casino section with Double D and Ownage in third gear. Double D takes an aggressive line, just taps the wall a bit, which hinders his speed. And as you can see from that tap, Ownage is ahead by a small tenth of a second as they go into the Grand Hotel hairpin, the tightest corner in Formula 1 in first gear. Ownage taking a very early line there, it seems, on the, as they're going to go up towards Mirabeau Basse corner, Portier corner actually, as they come out of there. On that, Ownage takes a nice line there, but Ownage is just behind as they come into the Nouvelle chicane. Going to be braking from 6th gear all the way down to first, and a bit of oversteer there from Double D, but corrects it nicely and gets a very nice exit out of that corner with the traction on there. Through to back corner, completely fat in 5th gear, a risky corner there as we go into the swimming pool complex to start the final sector. And at this point it seems like Double D is just ahead by about a tenth and a half as they go through turn 16 and up to Raskas corner. Very iconic corner this one as he's going to go into first gear. Double D taking it very nicely there. Into the final corner they go. And it is Double D who just pips Ownage to the line and gets pole position by a sheer 9/100, a tenth of a second from X-Ownage there, and take this qualifying comparison round. So here then is the grid for round 6 of the AOR PC Split 1 Championship, with Double D in the Williams taking pole position with a 1:13.9, as you saw there with the qualifying comparison, with Ownage lining up in 2nd place, only a tenth off the pole. Granu in the McLaren making an impressive 3rd place, lines up on the 2nd row, with Kloitsky in the Lotus half a second off the pole. Race Fanatic an impressive 5th place, 7 tenths off, with Marco FD and AOR Hamish, the surprise package, down in 6th and 7th place, so they've got a lot of work to do in the race, with Canisbe in the Sauber in 8th, Burkhoff in 9th, and MiniBlack in the Sauber completing the top 10, with the top 10 covered by only 1.4 seconds, which will provide some interesting action throughout the race. DH and Thomas RHD, Andrei and Crookie did not attend, whilst Rhino 83 has sadly left the league due to personal reasons, but will hopefully be back for next season for F1 2015. But let's head now to the race with Justin and Joe to give you coverage of round 6 of the Monaco Grand Prix.
It's race time for the Monaco Grand Prix. It's another dry weekend, of course, and there's a Williams on the front row in the form of Double D, but Joe, he's got an interesting driver sharing the front row with him.
Yes, we've got the return of Ownage for this one race only, and it's going to be such an interesting race, especially with him, as you can see there on the front row of the grid. Well, Justin, I can't call this.
We got 4 lights, we've got 5 lights. And they're away. We're on board with Kloitsky in the Lotus. Very strong performance in this season, and he's gotten a fantastic start. It looks like he's already passed Ownage, and he's passed Granu as well. Kloitsky shoots up into 2nd place. It looks like all the drivers have gone through turn 1, but there's been contact at the exit that looks like between Canisbe and Hamish. there's been some sort of issue, unfortunately, as they came out of the corner. Granu now losing a position to the other Williams of Race Fanatic, so both Williams in the top 4. It looks like there's been a little bit of contact there between Marco FD and DH1806, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, and oh no, I'm sorry, that is Granu, and Granu is through and into 5th position. Canisbe has had some issues, obviously, at the exit of turn 1, as mentioned, and he is right down at the back. You can see on the mini-map there is a pretty significant gap between the bottom 3 and the rest of the field. Marco FD, though, here, Joe, certainly not in a position that he wants to be in 6th place.
No, definitely not, and well, he'll definitely be looking to capitalise on Hamish's mishaps on this first lap as well. Obviously, he got into a bit of bother, but Marco now bearing down the gearbox of Granu in the McLaren, and he may have a look down the inside. Coming into Raskas, obviously it's a favourite overtaking opportunities for many drivers, as we've seen in the past, but Marco thinks better of it. Obviously it's only lap 1, and we've got a very long race ahead of ourselves today, 39 laps around. And we've got Hamish in the pits. I think he did take some front wing damage, if I'm not mistaken. Just slight front wing damage, but he's taken the opportunity, maybe gamble on a safety car later in the race, and he still may be able to pull off that 2-stop strategy as Marco, in fact, loses his piece of his front wing end plate, and that really does give a bit of respite for Granu. And also Hamish, I'm sure, will be glad of his teammates' mishaps. And although they are in a team, they're also in a championship battle. But we've still got Double D leading out front. And, well, Justin, I'm not sure how long it's going to take Klavutsky and Onage to catch Double D and maybe pass him, or whether he's, in fact, going to lead this race all the way.
Yep, on board right now with Onage. At the moment, he is very famous for using the cockpit cam, doesn't use the T-cam. I do believe, yeah, we get this nice onboard with Granu. Last lap, in the opening lap, I did see Granu run wide at that corner there to back, and he just barely grazed the wall at the exit of it, and he lost the front right side of his wing, those end plates there. So Granu is going to be losing a little bit of downforce on the right-hand side. This is a clockwise circuit, so it is more important for him to have the left side downforce, but obviously at a circuit like Monaco, you can use all the downforce that you can get. As we're starting lap 3, DRS now active, but Granu here, unfortunately, he is out of the range of the DRS of Race Fanatic ahead of him in 4th.
Yeah, and we've got Double D pumping in the fastest lap of the race, and I'm sure that is music to his ears, seeing as he is still leading this race. And we've got Canisbe now in 10th place, who was managed to capitalise on Hamish coming into the pits, and is in fact in a points-paying position after an awful start from him. But here we've got Double D, who was a little bit untidy coming out of that last corner, but now coming through the tunnel and coming down towards the Nouvelle chicane. He pops it into standard mix, and the drivers, I'm sure, will be getting a lot of wheel spin out of this corner. Obviously on the F1 2014 game, the first AOR League race at this circuit, but now we're on board with Granu, who's going to hopefully be getting some good traction for himself if he wants to stay ahead of Marco FD, the championship leader, who is right back on his gearbox. Or at least the proximity arrow appeared, and there it is again, coming through the swimming pool chicane and towards Raskas and Anthony Knows. But Granu there runs a little bit, well, he was a little bit shallow into that corner and ended a little bit early, but goes up to Rich Mix to try and protect from Marco, who will obviously have DRS. Granu way behind Race Fanatic in 4th, who's having a good race also. And there's Marco pumping it down the inside, and it looks as if he's got the move done, as he's got great traction out of the first corner. And as now we come towards the end of the first sector, Marco has indeed got that move stuck. And it's going to be interesting to see whether he can maybe bear down on Race Fanatic for B4.
Yep, there's a little bit of a gap to close down. Oh no, as Canisbe has another moment. It looks like he grazed the wall a little bit too much there. A little bit too much contact with the Armco, and Hamish is having a nice little thank you very much, and takes that position back from Canisbe that he lost when he pit. So obviously Hamish seems to be running very well on those prime tires. He is on the soft compound tire, which is the prime tire here at Monaco, of course. As you mentioned, very new regulations, very different season this season versus previous seasons. I'm not sure if Hamish is going to be able to run 19 laps on this set of tires here. So I think he might still have 2 stops left to make. does Hamish possibly, but we will see. Certainly the Mercedes drivers, both Mercedes drivers, have proven to be very strong at protecting their tires while being quick at the same time. So it is certainly possible. He has used both compounds. He did start on the super soft compound tire, so there's no need for him to go back to the super soft at any point, and he may essentially try and turn this into a one-stop race as we're back on board with Double D, the leader, and he's got some flat spots actually on his wheels that you can see. He's still running on those super soft tires, and he's got quite a nice gap to Klawitsky behind. We're going to find out just how big that gap is. 2.1 seconds is it right now. Excuse me, as we're on board with Canisbe right now, and it looks like he's having some struggles for sure. I can sympathize with that. Monaco, not my favorite track to drive in the F1 circuit in past years, certainly. And Hamish is going to gain another position. That's Thomas Irish HD coming out of the pits. He's very slow coming out of that pit lane. Hamish really has that speed that he carried out of the corner coming out of Sandoval, and he looks like he's going to take that position as Klawitsky here really struggling at the Nouvelle chicane. Oh no!
Oh,
and he's hit that spot, that famous spot on the right-hand side on the run down towards to back, and Onage is certainly going to capitalize on this. He's going to have to be very careful, as is Race Fanatic, and they're going side by side. He's going to have to cut the chicane. He tries his best to avoid cutting the chicane, makes contact with Klawitsky here, and this is very difficult for the drivers trying to navigate this poor Lotus that has lost his front wing and to boot has a flat tire.
Yeah, well, it's a very, very interesting lap that was, and you've got to feel for Klawitsky because, well, of course, he did disappear into that barrier almost, and then you sort of just don't know where to put yourself on the track. Obviously, Monaco, there's no runoff areas in particular, apart from that chicane, but he tried his best to not cut the chicane, and then, you know, it's just all sort of mix-up, and eventually, though, all the drivers did get through, and I don't think anyone else got any more damage, but yeah, it was an interesting point that you made earlier, Justin, about this not being your favourite track. And I don't think it really any drivers, I'd say, look forward to this Grand Prix. Many front wings will be put on, I'm sure, this race, and it's almost a race of attrition, these 39 laps, and I'm sure the drivers can't wait for the checkered flag to drop when it comes to around 34 or 35. And they can't wait for the race to finish. But now Klawitsky, going back to the action, is in P8 and is just behind Burkov, so yeah, showing his pace in the early stages of the race, and it was very unfortunate that, or for himself, that he did sort of accumulate that damage. But nonetheless, he is going to try and pass Burkov on the new set of super soft tyres. He did in fact fit the super soft tyres to his car, so going for obviously a quick stint. He's got quite a big gap, as you can see on the mini-map there, up to MiniBlack. So maybe that's what he was thinking, if he could sort of pump in a few good lap times. That he'd be able to get up there. But obviously Onage, who I don't think we've mentioned, is on the prime tyres. So he's going to be going quite deep into this race, or at least hoping to anyway. But he's quite a way, that's 11 seconds behind Double D. So Onage is really going to have to sort of, well, step up the pace when Double D comes in to change his tyres. But later on in the race he will be on the option tyres, but we know it is notoriously difficult to pass on this Monaco circuit, so it's going to be very interesting to see what Onage can do in the late stages of the race.
For sure, yeah. Marco FD made it look pretty easy when he made that overtake into Sandoval. That was a pretty nice move. But we're on board now with Race Fanatic. Currently a double podium positions for the Williams boys here. He's running on the super soft tires behind Onage, which surprisingly it does seem that Onage is struggling a bit now, and Race Fanatic seems to be doing just fine. So it's interesting. At this stage in the race, you would expect these soft prime tires to be a little bit quicker than the super softs, just because of tire wear and degradation. But no, Race Fanatic really seems to have picked up the pace, and he's all over the back of Onage. He's got the DRS, but really didn't have the best exit coming out of the final corner, so really wasn't able to gain on Onage, but at least he had that DRS there to help him keep up. As we're on board with Double D, and look how he just chucks it into the corners, understeering heavily, and while understeering it, though, he's pumping out these laps. As you mentioned, the gap to Onage is absolutely enormous at this point. He's averaging over a second a lap faster than Onage, which is certainly no small amount when you're talking about being faster than someone like Onage. But now here we are coming towards the end of lap 11. Onage has a little bit of a moment through to back there. Double D into the pits for his stop. Onage being absolutely harassed by Race Fanatic behind him. And I assume Race Fanatic might be coming into the pits as well, because the gap between the two Williams cars is so big that they could easily double stack this, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, well, I'm sure Race Fanatic must be a good 12 seconds behind, and he does indeed take the opportunity to come into the pit lane. And 11 laps on these option tyres, they can maybe take them 12 or 13 laps in the final stint with the little bit lighter fuel and the track obviously rubbering in. So they're going to be looking to sort of get a good 16 or 17 laps on these prime tyres. And you could also look out for Onage coming in at around lap 16 or 17 for his first stop, maybe even as early as lap 15. But we're now on board with Double D, who has made his pit stop and is right on the gearbox of Granu. He's going to be looking to try and get past as quickly as possible, seeing as Onage is further up the road, obviously in clean air, and Double D does not want to be held up by Granu, who must be coming into the pit lane in the next couple of laps, but he gets stuck on the barrier on the exit of Portiere, and Double D through the tunnel around the outside. Although he was carrying a lot more speed, it's still a very brave move to try through the tunnel and coming into the Nouvelle Chicane. He makes that move certain in P3, and now it's just Marco FD separating himself and the current race leader, Onage, although obviously he's still got to make his stop, and he's only 2.3 seconds behind Marco, who is not far behind Onage either. As we've now on board with Onage coming across the line to finish his 12th lap of the race. And let's have a look at his lap time. He's done a 1:18.5, so it's quite slow compared to his fastest time, which I think is considerably slower than Double D's fastest lap of the race. So I'd be interested to hear what you think, Justin. Whereabouts do you think Onage will come out on the track?
That's going to be a tough one. Certainly there is a pretty big gap. I believe that's 5th that we're seeing that's going through Casino right now on the mini-map. So I think it's safe to say that he could very likely come out into 5th position. So a big part of it is with the wings, as you mentioned earlier, there's going to be lots of wing changes as Canisbe just gets it all wrong through the swimming pool there. He is really struggling. You can see his rear tires there, and it just spun right into the wall there. This is not a good lap for him, and I assume that we're going to be seeing him diving into the pits right now, even though it is actually ahead of schedule for him, and I don't think he did.
No.
I think he actually continued on.
No, I think he did carry on, yeah.
Yep, that's very brave from him. As we were mentioning before, Double D really closing in on Marco FD at this point. Double D just really seems to be a man on a mission at this point. He's taking this opportunity that he's given himself by taking that pole position. He's just grabbing it with both hands, and he refuses to give up. And look at that, he gets the DRS on Marco. Way too far back to do anything about it on this occasion, of course, but that is really going to help him close that gap down, and you can see visually just how much closer he is as they climb the hill now. But yeah, Onage, I think he's probably going to come out in about 5th position, give or take. I don't think anybody is going to be trying a one-stop. I am curious, though, if you think we're going to be seeing a lot of... it sounds like 2 stops is going to be the right choice, but do you think we're going to be seeing a lot of people running 2 prime stints or 2 super soft stints, 2 option stints?
I'd probably say 2 option stints, just because they managed to get the options 11 or 12 laps at the start of the race. And we've still got Marco out there on lap 14. So he'll definitely be going option or 2 option stints, but he gets a poor exit out of Portiere, and is easy meat for Double D, who just seems to have the confidence to sort of chuck his car into every corner. And, well, that pole position, I'm sure, especially getting it over Onage as well, must have given him the confidence going into the race that he is in fact the fastest driver around the streets, and having that track position around there is so vital to try and get away at the start of the race. And you know, seeing as there are so many corners at this track, having that clean air, you know, it just makes it so much easier. And I'm sure Double D is sort of just trying to sort of at the start of the race, you know, eke out those lap times over Onage, which he managed to do. And now he's sort of got that confidence. He seems to be gaining on Onage, who seems to be struggling at this phase of the race. It's got to be said as Double D looks for a move down the inside of Onage, going side by side through Massenet and now through Casino. He makes the move stick. What a move that was from Double D. As we've got Klavutsky in the pit lane. As I mentioned earlier, he went option. So it is just about time for him to go onto the primes after his early puncture and mishaps. But Onage, I'm sure he's going to be tipping his hat to Double D for that, and I'm sure he won't mind one bit that he's been passed by that move, although he will still be determined to, I'm sure, try and get his own back on Double D later in the race. And if we do see a safety car, who knows, we might see Onage back at the top of the field and challenging Double D later on in the race.
Well, as we see Canisbe just disappear from the track, he's unfortunately had enough. Not even at the halfway point. Again, I totally sympathize with him on that one. We're on board with Hamish now. Actually, haven't seen much from Hamish recently. Currently running in P9, about 6 seconds to Granu up ahead. Gotta say, Hamish doesn't seem to be having the best of frame rates, so I'm wondering if Hamish is having any sort of technical issues. As Onage comes into the pits, though, for his first stop of the race, certainly going to be a 2-stop for him. He's done 15 laps. There's 24 laps remaining. That's likely going to be 2 12-lap stints on the Super Softs, which he has put on now. You'll notice it's a nice 3.7-second pit stop for Onage, and that is because he didn't have any wing damage. Obviously, in F1 2014, there is no option as far as, and look at that, he's going to come out in 4th as well, so 1 position better than predicted even. As Onage come out, and I'm sure he's going to be happy about that. But that protecting of the wing, as you can see here, Marco FD has damage to his front wing, and that's going to lengthen his pit stop, and that's something that Onage has protected against, and it saved him a solid 3 seconds in the pit stop, as we see Marco getting that 6.1 second stop. So you know, protecting your wing could end up paying serious dividends later in the race.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Marco, you can see, probably came out about 2 or 3 seconds, or maybe 4 or 5 seconds behind Onage, and that could prove crucial come later on in the race, especially in just getting up on that track position. Protecting that front wing, obviously in that stint as well. You know, Marco's probably been running a good 10 or 15 laps without that section of his front end plate. As you can see, Hamish here is really struggling with his frame rate, so I'm sure he's going to be really frustrated, seeing as he's done all the hard work to get those victories earlier on in the season in the last couple of races, and now it's almost all going to waste as he's down in 8th position, and Klavutsky, who I believe has made an extra stop than Hamish, is right up behind him, and on the prime tyres this stint, but still seems to have a decent amount of pace on lap 17, so I'd imagine he'll probably go for one more stop, maybe an option stint towards the end. For Klavutsky. Obviously he did have to make a very early pit stop, so there's no chance he's going to be running these tyres till the end, but he's going to want to try and clear Hamish as quickly as possible, because there does seem to be quite a bit of clean air up ahead, but that was maybe a little bit of an optimistic move. He maybe didn't expect to gain so much on Hamish, who is really struggling at this stage of the race. And, well, it's been a difficult afternoon for this Mercedes driver, and Klavutsky has just steamed past him. Hamish didn't seem too happy about it, or at least his driver didn't throw his hand up. But skipping now onto lap 18, we've got Granu in pursuit of Marco, and I believe that'll be Onage in 4th position. And, well, it's going to be interesting to see how this battle unfolds for sure.
Yep, of course, Granu also has his teammate right behind him, Thomas Irish HD, but also worth mentioning, Klavutsky, I'm sure, is going to be very happy about Hamish waving him through there, because he did actually have a broken DRS, too. So he had no chance, really, of getting by. Oh, no, there's been contact between Marco FD and, is that the Lotus?
Onage, I think.
Is it Onage? Oh no, so Onage and Marco FD, the championship
leader. It's DH1806.
Yep, yeah, it sure was a Lotus. Yeah, DH1806, who might still be out on his 2nd stint, possibly. So had some sort of contact with Marco FD there, and that sent Marco spinning at turn 1, Sandoval. And unfortunately, I'm not seeing. Yeah, we can see him moving on the minimap. We see him moving on the minimap, so he is moving nicely. I don't think he's lost his entire front wing, but Granu now got a great exit coming into the tunnel now. He's going to go around the outside of DH1806 and take that position before even reaching the chicane. Very nice move from Granu. That's got to be the easiest and least drama-filled overtake of the day so far. Very straightforward move from Granu there, so I'm sure he's going to be happy about that. He also now has the Lotus of DH1806 between himself and his teammate, which is always nice as well. Riding on board with Race Fanatic. Oh no, and he's gotten it all wrong. That's a back. That is a really tough corner to have a mistake at because it is so high speed. I believe the highest speed corner of the entire circuit is to back. So that is certainly, and actually it hasn't done any damage to his front wing, as Quali there goes flying past Hamish, who is sideways on the track. Marco FD now running just behind DH1806. This is a replay now at the end of lap 18, and he gets that DRS. DRS is open, he's up in the bridge mix. DH1806, it looks like he's going to protect the inside. Forces Marco to go to the outside, and there's that contact, and he just spins it right around. A bit of a standard side pipe glitch was that one. And unfortunately, that's lost in plenty of positions. Oh, and I thought that was Hamish that had spun, but it was actually Marco. Yeah, who had spun at the exit of the swimming pool, and that is going to be, that is absolutely terrible for his race. He's having to do a 3-point turn in the middle of the track just to try and get back, and just absolutely destroying his tires. And here's that late race pit stop for the options that you were alluding to for Quali. Interestingly enough, though, he went onto the super softs, and I believe, yeah, there's 17 laps remaining still in this race. I'm not sure if Quali has gone the right way. He did have that incident on lap 7, I believe it was. He could have easily done, in my opinion, 2 16-lap stints on the prime tires and been in much better shape, as we see Double D now getting out of shape. So as we're approaching the closing stages of this race here, clearly the unforgiving nature of the track starting to get to these drivers.
Yeah, for sure. It was always going to tell at some point, and Double D, not usually in the position up and around the podiums in the lead of the race, him being this time. And Onage, obviously very experienced at being at the top of the field. And the two Williams drivers, maybe the pressure is just starting to take its toll a bit. Race Fanatic taking this opportunity to come in for what will hopefully for him be his final stop of the day. He puts on a set of the prime tyres, front wing change, which, as you mentioned earlier, Justin, can be very, very costly around here, costing him 3 seconds. But he does come out in 4th position, I believe, and yes, he does. So he's going to come back out onto the racetrack in 4th position, but he doesn't have to make any more pit stops, and I wouldn't imagine, unless he gets significant front wing damage, he's going to have to make any. But Double D, who has quite significant front damage, is probably going to take this opportunity too, although I'm sure he would probably want to try and stretch out this middle stint to go on the options at the end of the race. Marco FD is in the pit lane as well. He goes onto the option tyres, and you can see there's 15 laps left in the race, so Marco, I believe, did about 15 laps at the start of the race, so that should be enough for him. But we've got a Williams, and as Marco gets a warning for crossing the pit exit line, he is behind the Williams of, I believe that'll be Race Fanatic. Oh, it's Double D, he's been lapped. Wow, Marco, the championship leader, has been lapped by Double D, and I thought it would have been Race Fanatic, seeing as he had his mishaps with the front wing, but he's long gone up the road. Marco, of course, having a couple of issues in the last few laps, and being lapped by Double D, who also, I believe, has the front wing damage. So Marco's maybe going to try and get by, if he can, on a fresh set of option tyres. The championship leader, so he obviously has the pace to do so. But while all this madness has been going on, we've just got Onage going about his business as we lose connection to Canisbe after he retired from the race earlier. But Onage just going about his business. It was very, very Onage-like, you know, just sort of showing his experience in this sort of situation. And who knows, like I said earlier, come the closing laps of the race, he might still be there fighting for the win.
Yep, and we're on board with Quali, one of those guys who we thought was going to be fighting for the win at the beginning of the race, and he's got a bird's eye view here, just a great view of his teammate DH1806 really struggling through the final stages of the lap there, losing an end plate, did DH1806, and it sounds like there might be a little bit of radio communication happening between them, but no, DH stays in front for right now. We may see some team orders come into play here, possibly, if Quali really truly feels that he's being held up by his teammate. But I think DH might be on the better strategy. Quali, again, he did pit earlier, not too long ago, but I do believe that DH is on the fresher tires, but he takes him there at the inside of Mirabeau with not too much drama, a little bit of contact between them, but nothing too bad. Double D into the pits with another wing change for him, but it's not like it matters too much, as he has a 19-second lead to Onage behind, so 3 seconds extra in the pits, really not going to make much of a difference. And that's Onage, our new leader, as it stands for right now. Certainly is going to have to pit again, but he gets nicely around Burkov, the only Force India, I believe, in today's race, who is now lapped, now a lap down. Whenever I was driving Monaco and I got lapped, I would say to myself, well, at least now I only have to do 38 laps.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I'm sure the drivers, like I said earlier, are sort of trying to minimise the amount of laps that they've got to do. But Onij, I'm sure, will be quite content with these 10 or 12 laps that we've got remaining in the Grand Prix, because he is still in with a chance. Although Double D is probably he's a good. Probably after the pit stops, we'll have about an 18-second lead, maybe a little bit less than that over Onij, if I'm not mistaken. But he only, Onij only did just jump Double D in the pits. Although it is actually quite a short pit time here at Monaco, so Onij will definitely fancy his chances. He's 3.4 seconds behind Onij as he gets a warning for corner cutting. It's been a very untidy lap, as we've got some lap cars here. Thomas Irish and Burkov, I believe, in 9th and 10th position. They do get out of the way, though, for Double D, who has, in fact, been given the benefit of DRS. And he's only 2.8 behind Onij now, so he's really using these few laps to try and get as close to Onij as he can. And when Onij pits for the option tyres, I assume, at the end of the race, that he should have a sufficient lead over Onij. But Granu now in the pit lanes for his final stop of the race, or what should be. 11 laps to go, and he's fitting the option tyres. You may have noticed that today we've said this should be their final stop, because you never know what's going to happen around Monaco, do you, Justin? And how many front wings you're going to lose.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine a lot of these teams had to bring nearly half a dozen wings just to cover all the incidents that people are having. Granu now, though, on lap 31, coming up to DH 1806, just outside of DRS range, 1.4 seconds to the Lotus ahead of him, going through the very, very tight hairpin at the hotel hairpin, very, very tight, tightest corner on the entire calendar. And they're coming into the tunnel now. He's up into rich mix. He is unoptimal. I did notice that Double D was on -1 earlier, so Double D, as you mentioned, pushing very, very hard. Is he at all times. He's treating every lap like it's a qualifying lap, bumping into the barriers. He seems to be maintaining most of his front wing anyway. Granu there coming very close to the inside wall at back, very high speed, very committed through that corner, and he's definitely within DRS range now. Look at that, 8/10 that he clawed back in that middle sector. He's really setting up the Lotus now, going through the final corner. Got to have a good exit, a little bit of wheel spin. Oh, and his DRS is broken. Granu's DRS is broken, and that's going to mean that without some sort of major mistake from 1806 here, he's going to really struggle to get by. He's got a nice run coming out of turn 1 up the hill now. Can he get alongside? No, he can't. He's going to have to hang back. DH 1806, though, runs a little wide, and it looks like Granu might be setting himself up for a moot into Mirabeau here, and no, he's too far back. And now he's got a car right behind him. Is that Hamish?
Yes, I believe it is.
Well, it says...
no, I think it might be a lap car, in fact.
Oh, yeah, I think
Hamish
it's
is 4
Burkov.
seconds back.
I think it's Burkov. I think he just lapped him in the previous lap. Oh, and DH 1806 has a huge moment there at Portier, and he just slams his side pod into the inside of the barrier, and that just left the door wide open for Granu. And oh no, and he's spun. He's stuck against the wall there at the end of the tunnel just before the chicane, and it seems like he's stuck there. It does look like his dot is moving once again on the mini-map, but certainly that's lost him at least 1 position, and he might be even coming under attack for another position as we start lap 37 here.
Yeah, well, not many laps to go at all, and Onij is still out in the lead, and he's 3.4 seconds ahead of Double D, so it's an amazing strategy from Onij, and Double D is, I'm sure that he'll be so wanting to get that victory after proving that he's probably the quickest driver around here all weekend. But Onij, like I said earlier, is just going about his business as he usually does, and Granu getting very, very close to Klavutsky there, maybe a little bit too close, and he's just behind him, although he will be in DRS range. We've got Hamish now, who's 6.7 seconds behind Granu, and I believe that gap is expanding as we're on lap 36 now, and it's recommending for him to come into the pit stops, but he does indeed carry on. And now Granu, whose DRS is back working again, is behind Klavutsky. Less than a second, so he's just within DRS ranges. Now we've got Marco FD also within DRS range of DH1806. Neither of these two have had particularly good races, or at least they've had their moments, as we've got running side by side up towards Massenet in the casino. And Marco goes down the inside. He's showing no mercy to the Lotus drivers. He runs a little bit wide, but manages to keep it out of the barriers. And that gets him P7. 10.9 seconds behind his teammate, so I can't see that gap closing towards the end of the race. But Granu is murdering that gearbox of Klavutsky for P4. Klavutsky, with all the moments that he's had, and obviously that puncture on lap 7 and the numerous pit stops, he's actually managed to take these option tyres quite a long way into the race. So we obviously did know what he was doing earlier on in the race when he fitted those option tyres. But now it looks as if it's maybe coming back to bite him, as Granu just seems to be getting so much more traction than him. As now we come into Raskas and Anthony Knows. Going up into Rich Mix is Granu, and you can just see that wheel spin from Klavutsky coming out of Raskas, less so out of Anthony Knows, but Granu has got the run coming into Sandivart now. Klavutsky maintains position but locks his tyre, and Granu is really going to be trying to get past now. We've got just 2 laps to go in the Grand Prix, as they're now coming up Beau Rivage and towards Massenet, which then turns into the right hand of Casino, and running towards Mirabeau is Granu just sort of clips the wall there, and towards the end of the first sector into Mirabeau, the gap is 8 tenths it says, but it looks a lot closer than that. And now with just over a lap to go, well, it's all to play for those positions.
Yep, yeah, really, Hamish is closing in too. I know we said that gap really couldn't be made up, but Hamish seems to be on a mission to prove us wrong, as he really does seem to be flying and pushing very hard. There's only one more DRS zone, really, with the activation point being right at the end of the lap and as you start a new lap. So really, this is Granu's last real DRS attempt anyway, as far as overtaking on Klavutsky. So he's going to really want to close up here in the swimming pool section, which he's done very nicely. Once again at Raskas, and look at the tires on Klavutsky, and he's lost both end plates on both sides. He's on dead tires. He's lost both end plates on his front wing. But he's still hanging in there. He is still defending from Granu. He locks both front tires as they come into Sandivalt, but he is still ahead, and that's really what matters. You got to say, in spite of everything, Klavutsky certainly looks like he is going to be hanging on to this 4th place position, and you could tell that he really wants it. But Granu gets a great run through Casino. He's got the inside line, and he's just going to take that position, or is he? Klavutsky manages to hang around the outside. Onage comes home to finish the race. That was a little bit of a dirty move from Klavutsky, but I don't think it was intentional. So I think he let Granu back past. He's got a better run through Portier, I think, as they're going into the tunnel there. Again, Onage wins ahead of Double D. Very surprising finish there. But of course, there's still racing going on in the back here. Klavutsky now dropping off a little bit off of Granu. I think that was his last opportunity there coming into the Nouvelle Chicane. I don't think he's going to have another opportunity to try and get that 4th place position back, and penalty. And it looks like, yeah, Hamish is right behind him. You could just see Klavutsky in the distance there, so he really needs to make sure that he doesn't make any mistakes more than anything else. And right on to say that Hamish makes a mistake. He's into the barrier. He's got his teammate Marco FD, so a miserable race has Hamish had, but at the very least he does finish ahead of his teammate Marco FD, who is over 10 seconds behind him. And here is Marco crossing the line ahead of DH1806. What a race, absolutely amazing. Double D did receive a 10-second penalty, so even though he was only 2.883 seconds behind Onage, he was classified as being 12 seconds behind, but with a further 22 seconds to the next car, Race Fanatic, that does mean that Double D maintains that 2nd place position. So really that penalty was completely negated by Double D's speed. Race Fanatic, though, gets a podium, a double podium finish for Williams, as they take home the maximum amount of points for their Constructors' Championship, which I'm sure they are going to be absolutely thrilled with. Double D probably going to be a little bit more thrilled than Race Fanatic, certainly, but both of those guys, I'm sure, are very happy. Granu gets a very well-deserved 4th place, Great drive from Granu. That's one of the best drives we've seen from Granu in quite some time. We've all known that he has the speed, he's got the pace, he's got the fighting, the will, but great result for Granu, who does finish ahead of Klawutski, just narrowly 1.6 seconds separating them. Followed by our championship leaders, Hamish first in 6th place, followed by Marco in 7th place. Tough race for the Mercedes guys, but that's really the kind of stuff that you see here in Monaco is the results really just get thrown up in the air and people finish all over the place. DH1806 makes it a double points finish for Lotus in a race where it's very difficult to finish at all, so I'm sure they'll be very happy about that. Burkov gets a couple of points for Force India. Of course, Andrei not present at the race today, so he was the only Force India there. Thankfully for him, picks up a couple of points for them. Thomas Irish HD grabs the final point position, 2 laps down in the ends. Obviously a very difficult race for him, but he does grab an extra point for McLaren. And of course, MiniBlack and Canisbe DNF'd in the race. Unfortunately, they were not able to score any points. Andrei, Ryan, and Crookie, so both Red Bulls and one of the Force Indias failing to start the race. So, yeah, it's certainly a good day for the Williams boys, Joe.
Oh yeah, most certainly, and they'll be ecstatic with that double podium finish. And all that means for the Drivers' Championship is that Marco FD is leading the way, still on 98 points, but Hamish has once again closed that gap, and it is down to just 11 points between those two drivers. Now, with Klawutski still hanging on in there, he's only in fact 18 points off the championship lead, and 7 points behind Hamish. With Double D, a great weekend for him. He jumps all the way up to 4th in the standings. Level on points with his teammate Race Fanatic, so those two will be, they'll be very, very pleased with their weekend. With Granu moving down to 6th position, but he'll definitely be encouraged by that great drive from him coming home in 4th, with DH1806 moving up to 7th place, whilst MiniBlack once again moving down to 8th position. It was not a great weekend for either of the Sauber drivers, both of them not finishing the race. Unfortunately, but Andrei is in 9th position still after not turning up this weekend. Neither did Ryan, but he maintains his 10th place. Canisbe will also be disappointed with his weekend, with Thomas Irish in 12th and Burkov in 13th. Crookie once again didn't turn up this weekend and is yet to get off the mark this season. But I'm sure that up at the top of the standings, it will be very, very interesting in the next race at Canada. And, what's all that got to do for the constructors' standings?
Well, Mercedes, obviously, they took a little hit. Obviously, it's been a very dominant season for Mercedes, though. So they still sit at 185 points in the lead, 82 points clear of Ferrari. So they're going to be very happy about that. While Lotus has moved up to 100 points, but they are now followed very closely by Williams, who are now sitting at 88 points, which obviously that's huge for Williams. They're really closing in on Klawutski and DH1806 in that Williams team. McLaren, they scored pretty nicely here. No movement, obviously, this week in the Constructors' Championship, but things got quite a bit closer. McLaren scoring nicely. Sauber, of course, didn't score this weekend at all, but thanks to Burkov's couple of points, he moves Force India just a little bit closer to Sauber in the championship at 28 for Sauber, 18 for Force India. Still just 10 points for Red Bull as it stands right now. So that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you guys for joining us. It's been fantastic. Thanks to Ryan L83, and thank you to Joe. Thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, not a problem, Justin. It's been great, as always, to commentate alongside you. And I'm really looking forward to the next race as well. They're coming thick and fast at the moment. And, this championship is really shaping up to be good, as we're only a third of the way through the season. And there's only 18 points separating the top 3 in the championship. And, I can't wait for the next race. I'm sure you can't either, Justin.
Yep, really looking forward to it. We'll see you guys next time.
See ya.